Ladies and gentlemen, the Commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, Mr. Greg Sankey.
Good afternoon. It's my privilege to be here today to represent the 14 universities of the Southeastern Conference, to share our collective condolences and to celebrate a remarkable life, while at the same time to simply have an opportunity to say to Mike's family and friends, thank you. I'm often asked, what's the favorite part of being a conference commissioner? And the answer for me is typically pretty simple. It's the people that you get to know. When I'm asked about my least favorite part, I'm also quick to say it's the people sometimes. The opportunity, though, to come to know someone personally, someone who most people see on a television or sitting in the stands in a football stadium or even in an arena watching that person on the sidelines. I had heard of Mike Leach when he was on the staff at Kentucky, and I was commissioner of the Southland Conference then. I attended games in the Cotton Bowl in 2006 and 2009 when he was at Texas Tech and watched his teams play. And I watched him lead a program and having the opportunity at Washington State, but I didn't meet him until he attended a meeting of SEC Ed football coaches in our offices in Birmingham in February of 2020. Mike was on time. He did not wear a Hawaiian shirt nor cargo shorts. He did not wear sandals that day. In fact, we had him sit next to Lane Kiffin. Believe it or not, Mike didn't have much to say in that particular meeting. But think where we were back in February of 2020 in college football and in society. The transfer portal was barely a year and a half old. We had heard about name, image, and likeness, but it wasn't yet an actual thing. Joe Burrow had just led his team at LSU to the national championship, and football players still sat out a year if they transferred and wanted to play at another university. In that same month, we'd heard of COVID-19. We never interrupted a practice or canceled a tournament or rescheduled a game because of COVID. We didn't have to wear breathing masks back then to play college football. You look back and you think, wow, that all seems so quaint today, doesn't it? Our reality, though, started to quickly change. COVID stopped everything. The Supreme Court later that year rendered a decision that altered the rules governing college sports. State laws began permitting that name, image, and likeness activity. As you just heard, in the state of Mississippi, people came together to effect change in the symbol, the state flag that flew over this state. And Mike and his colleagues here at Mississippi State and those at Ole Miss were a part of that change, along with the leadership of this great state. It was during that time that Mike and I had a series of phone calls. I learned that you never scheduled a 15-minute phone call with Mike. It went much longer, which is not typical for myself and football coaches. I learned never to expect a phone call with Mike to focus on only one issue. I can literally remember leaving downtown Birmingham the day after a protest had happened on a Sunday night, as Mike was talking about history in this region, and I watched National Guard vehicles pass going into downtown. I learned that I never had to say much during a phone call with Mike Leach, as I could pretty much just listen. And on those calls, we'd talk about football. We talked about officiating, and I think many of you know his great appreciation for college football officials. We talked about that college football playoff and had active debates about 64 versus 12. We have 12, but I can hear him explaining 64 to me. I talked with him about writing books, reading books, and teaching a class. I asked him why he took the time to teach a class. I mean, my goodness, you're a head football coach at what people call as a Power 5 institution. Why do you take that time? And he talked about the people he brought into that class and the people who are a part of that class. And I asked him why he chose to come back to the Southeastern Conference. You know, Mike had been a part of the SEC before moving to Starkville, including his time with Hal Mumme at Kentucky. He'd been in our footprint at Valdosta State. He had coached at Oklahoma, soon to be a member of the SEC. In fact, I think every coach that's been a head coach at Oklahoma is here today to honor Mike, or at least most are. During our media days in the coming months, I wondered what he would say. He didn't have an opening statement. He spoke of the Southeastern Conference that day when we gathered together for media days, just as he did on that phone call, the talent present in the SEC, about coaching your team, about winning games against the best, about being the best with what you have, about testing yourself in that environment. He talked about the long list of coaches he respected and their legacy in this league. He talked about the attention drawn here. And he talked about looking forward to the crowds, to the unique atmospheres in our stadiums. And then we had to stop, if you go back to 2020. With those expectations, even though he talked about it in our media days the next year, he actually had a press conference where he spoke about the fun having been taken out of college football in that 2020 season. And what was interesting is the reaction would often be from the media as if a line had been drawn, and Mike was on one side and perhaps I was on the other. I actually called Mike after, and I said, you know what, you're exactly right. COVID testing, not knowing if you're going to play, not having those fans in the stadiums. It wasn't as much fun. And for those of you who are a part of that experience, whether an administrator, an official, a coach, a player at the college or high school level, you still have my admiration for making it happen. I only had one masking conversation with Mike, and I kind of won that one, I thought, because you can imagine the difficulty in just trying to play. I also read that Mike had talked about learning through perseverance. In fact, you can find a video of him in the locker room at Washington State talking about overcoming, about the values learned from moving through difficult situations. And in fact, that college football, as a reality of competition, as a reality of preparation, presents adversity that has to be overcome. And his observation is that's actually where the fun lies. My stories about Mike are a conversation as he was heading to the locker room in Tucson this year. I have never before, and I expect to never since, have a conversation with a coach at halftime of a football game. It was backstage at media days where we talked about stand-up paddleboarding, a trip to Africa or Colombia, and the value present in wearing neckties, which I thought was only a conversation between he and I. And now that I have mentioned it, I think all of you have had a conversation with Mike about the value of wearing neckties. But mine went further as we wondered why powdered wigs disappeared from formal activities, but neckties remained. There are plenty of stories told about Mike, told by people who knew him better than me. The life of Mike Leach produced stories with words like swashbuckling, innovative, quirky, colorful, one of a kind. Those words may apply, but I also watched him talk with intent about the value of education and the importance of graduating people who are part of a college football team. Was he demanding? Absolutely. But I had staff come back from watching a practice talk about the efficiency and the focus of his team in those practice moments. I talked with our coaches about the importance of execution in his offense. And I went back to our media days and found this quote from Mike where he said, "Football has always been a game of execution. There's not a lot of roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote, who you ambush, fool the other guy, then you walk away laughing like Muttley after the rock fell on the guy," or something like that. We don't have enough football coaches who talk about Muttley in their press conferences. He said it's always been a game of execution, and the coaches in this conference knew and respected Mike for that. I am grateful that Mike chose to be a part of the Southeastern Conference these past 3 years. 6 weeks ago, I called Bracky Brett after the Georgia game. Bracky's the interim athletics director here, and I told him I wanted to coordinate a date to meet and visit with Mike and listen to him, how we and I could improve be it here or in Starkville or in Key West. I'm sad I won't have that opportunity. To Sharon, to the children and grandchildren, that thank you I mentioned at the beginning is the thank you I offer now. Thank you for sharing your husband, your father, your grandfather with us in all of college football. The people here today are a testimony to the value of that contribution. To every member of a team, those who are part of Mike's coaching staffs, be you current players or former players, maybe you simply sat on a bar stool next to Mike and had a conversation like I did on those phone calls. We all share memories today, while also communicating our true appreciation for Mike Leach. And as we walk away, let me encourage you to do this. Make sure you pay it forward for others as he did for you. Thank you.